Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Anson here, and we're back with a brand new video. Today I'm going to show you guys how to do a simple event handler, and as well, if we have time, I'm going to show you guys how to do a command handler. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, call it bot.js, and I'm going to go and create a .env file. This is going to store our environment variables. So this way we can actually store our token and not expose the entire token inside our entry point of our bot. And in order to reference this environment variable, what we need is we need to require the .env library, which is part of Node.js. I mean, other languages have their own, but just make sure if you don't have this module, just go into your terminal and just type in npm install .env. And I recommend installing it globally so that it'd be much easier for you to use it. Okay, so we're going to do .config, so this will load all of our environment variables. So if I want to access my token, I can do so by saying process.env.token. Okay, and if I do nodemon bot.js, you're going to see my token is logged to the console, just like that. And of course, I can set other environment variables as well, such as the command prefix, set that to a exclamation mark, and that will be there as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and just say const client equals require discord.js. I'm just going to import the client object or the class itself because I don't really need anything else. Or actually, wait a minute, did I import the client? Okay, new client. Okay, perfect. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and say client.login process.env.token. And our bot should be online. Okay. All right. So now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and create a folder, call it events or whatever you want, but events would be the easiest. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're gonna go ahead and put all of our events that we want to handle inside this folder. Now, the name of each file needs to follow the name of the event that you want to handle, and the casing is very important. So, for example, if I wanted to handle the message event, it would have to be all lowercase, message, and then .js. Okay, not .py or .txt, it has to be .js. If I wanted to handle the message reaction add events, I would have to do message, all lowercase, reaction with a capital R, and then add with a capital A.js. Okay, I recommend doing it this way. If you want to do it a different way, you'd have to do your own parsing, which is up to you. But for the sake of the tutorial, we're just going to keep things simple. Okay, it works well and it's simple. That's all that matters. Okay, so let me just delete this for now. I'm going to go ahead and create another file called ready.js. Basically, the whole point of this is what we're going to do is we're going to read the entire events directory, and we're only going to look for files. Okay, well, when I say files, I mean like actual, .js files. We're not going to be looking for .py files. We're going to be looking for txt files or directories. We're going to be looking for .js files. Okay, so just letting you know that if you want to, let's say, group your events together, I'll say that for another video, because if we read this entire, we're gonna have to actually read the entire file recursively, which I'm not gonna do in this video. We're just gonna keep things simple for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and write some code. So what I'm gonna do before I do anything else is I'm gonna import two modules. Okay, I'm gonna import the FS module, which stands for file system. This is part of Node itself, the Node API. So if you have Node installed, you will have this module directly out of the box, so you don't have to do any installation. But I'm going to use the promises version of FS because I really like it a lot, and you can use it too. But if you don't want to, you can use just the regular FS library, but you're gonna have to use callbacks, which is, again, I don't really like callbacks, but that's just a me thing. Okay, and then I'm also going to import the path module, so that way we can resolve paths much easier and it'll look prettier. Okay, so if you don't know what the path module does, I can pretty much do something like this: console.log. I can do path.join their name, and I'll pass in the directory I want to look for. So let's just say events. If I save, you're gonna see it's gonna build an absolute path for us right over there, just like that. And if I do events1, obviously this directory doesn't exist, but you see what the point is, right? It's going to basically join, it's going to build the entire absolute path for us, which is much better. Okay, so we have our modules all imported. Let's go ahead and actually use it. So we're gonna go ahead and say fs.readdir. This is going to read the entire path to the file, or it's gonna basically read the entire directory. Okay, it's gonna read all of the contents inside the directory, but it's not gonna read the subdirectories, the contents of the subdirectories. Okay, so let me show you an example. So let's say if I do new folder, and this is what I was talking about like about 2 minutes ago. Okay, sub events, and let's just say sub.js. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and simply pass in the path. So path.join underscore dir name and events. Okay, so this will build an absolute path for us, and it's going to read the events folder for us. Now, if this directory doesn't exist, it's going to throw an error. Just letting you know. And of course, there are other options too. But we're not going to worry about that for now. So now, since we're using the promises version, obviously it's gonna return promises, and we need to handle them. So we're gonna use .then. You could use async await, but I'm just gonna use this for simplicity. And I'm gonna go ahead and say .then, and this is going to resolve an array of all of the files. And we're gonna do .catch at the end. Always want to handle your errors. Okay, so let's just say hypothetically if I did events1, it's going to throw an error, see no such file or directory. Now, if you don't have the .catch, I just want to show you guys, you're going to get something called an unhandled promise rejection warning. Okay, because obviously an error happened, an error was thrown, and you're not handling that error. So you always want to make sure you are handling your errors by using then and catch or try catch or whatever mechanism you're using, either promises, callbacks, async await. Okay, just wanted to throw that out there. Anyway, so if you console.log this files parameter that's passed into this callback function or order function, you're gonna see, or actually we need to fix this, events. Okay, you're gonna see that we have all of the files inside this array. Right, we have 3 files. We have message.js, ready.js, and then sub-events. Now notice how sub.js is not inside this array, because like I said, it's only going to read all of the files inside the current directory and not its subdirectories. Okay, so if you wanted to read the files of subdirectories, you'd have to read this entire the recommended way would be reading it recursively. Okay, but again, we're keeping things simple, so let me just delete this directory. Okay, awesome. So now we're gonna have to do a simple what am I doing? Okay, so we have this array. What we want to do is we want to iterate through this array. We want to get the event's name. Now remember, it's important that you have the event name, the name of the file, the same way, same casing as the actual event name. If you don't know what the name of the events are, just go to the docs. I'll show you. Go over to docs, documentation, and then click on clients. On the right side, you're going to see all of the event names and the casing and whatnot. You want to make sure you follow exactly the way it is. Okay? All right. So, all right. Let's go ahead and simply iterate through this entire array, because we're going to need to get the event name. We're going to require that we're going to require the file that corresponds to the event name, and then we're going to add event listeners to it, okay, or event handlers. Okay, so we're going to say files.for each file. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check to make sure that it is a valid JS file, or it is a valid file, which is a .js file. So we're going to say if let's see, file does not ends with .js, return. Okay, so basically if we run into, let's say, a Python file, we can see that this file does not end with .js, so we're going to return. And if it is a valid .js file, we're going to go on inside the loop, and we're going to get the event name first. So we're going to say let's event name equals, we're going to say file.substring, because remember, the name of the event can be extracted from this file parameter. Okay, so we're going to say file.substring. We're going to start from index 0, and we're going to go all the way up until the first occurrence, so index of .js. Okay, So then we're going to go ahead and just do a simple console log just to, make sure that this is properly working. You're going to see a message and ready. Okay, now you could probably get rid of this. And if you see, you're going to see that the first, it tried to read the .py first, but since that substring was not found, it returns, I think, an empty string. So if you do console.log event name .length, right, it's going to say 0. Right? So, but then again, you'd have to do another additional check. You'd have to check if the event name .length is equal to 0. Then that means it's not a valid JS file, because if it was, it would return a string that's length is not 0. But again, I'm just gonna Control Z and go back to what we originally had. Okay, because that check is fine enough. Okay, so we have the event name. Now, what we're gonna do is we need to get the actual module itself. Okay, so all of these files, every JS file in the node environment is considered a module. Okay, so inside the ready.js, this itself is a module. We need to make sure that we have a top level function. So we're going to do module.exports equal clients. So I'm just going to do a simple example, but I'm going to explain what's going on in here in just a sec. But for now, just bear with me. Okay, so right now we have this module.export. We're exporting this top level function, which takes in one parameter, which is going to be the client, if that makes sense. And I'm going to go ahead and require that file now. Okay, so we could do so by saying let event module equals require path.join underscore dir name. So that's the current directory. Join it with events, the events directory, and then join it with the actual module name itself. Okay, so this is why we need to make sure our event name matches the file name. So it's just much easier and much more convenient for us. So we're going to pass an event name, and we don't need the .js extension because Node itself, the engine, will automatically look for .js files first. If it doesn't exist, it'll look for, I think, .json next, and then .node files. But don't worry so much about that for now. Okay, so now if I go ahead and if I log event module to the console, you're gonna see that we have an empty curly brace right over here. So actually, give me 1 sec. Let me go ahead and just delete message.js for now and app.py for now. Let's delete this. Okay, so notice how if I print out event module, we get function. Okay, that's good, don't worry. So now that we have the actual module itself, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add an event listener. So we're going to say client on. Now, what we're going to pass in for the first parameter, so like every other event that you'd handle, let's say if I wanted to do a simple client on ready, I would do client on and then pass in the ready string. Okay, in here though, what we're going to do is we're going to pass in the event name. Remember, you need to make sure it matches the exact event names on the docs. Make sure the casing is correct, the name is correct, and all that stuff. Okay, so we're adding an event, we're adding a listener to whichever event this is. It could be ready events, it could be the message event, message reaction add, whatever it is. We're basically adding a listener to this event. Okay, now every listener has a function handler that allows us. It's basically a callback function that we can use to, operate and implement our logic for it. So for example, if I have a client on, let's see, what should I do? Let's just say message update. This takes in, or actually let me do a simple one. I'll just do message reaction add. This takes in the message reaction object and the user object. So this right over here, this portion over here is the callback function, or whoops, I forgot the arrow. But we can also call it the event handler, because this is the function we're going to use to handle the events, right? But I'm just going to call it a callback function because it's a higher order function. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say event module, whoops, dot bind. Wait a minute, hold on. Event module dot bind. Okay, and what we're going to do here is we're going to pass in null, and then we're going to pass in clients as the parameter. Okay, now give me 1 second. Okay, So before I get into anything else, let me just show you that this works, and then I'm going to explain what's going on in just a second. Has logged in. And if I save, you're going to see AnSenBot has logged in. Okay, so now let's go ahead and explain what's going on. Okay, so starting with this part, line 15. What I'm doing here is I'm basically adding a listener to whatever event name that we just read through the file. So in this case, it's ready.js. Okay, now this second part is obviously, it looks really weird, but let's understand what's going on. So this event module, this variable, is actually a function. Okay, if I log it out to the console, you're going to see it's going to say function, right? Because over here, we are exporting this entire function from the ready.js file. So when it gets required in, right, we just basically have a toppable function inside here. That's what we want. Okay, when you call .bind on a function, it basically creates a new function with this argument attached with whatever you pass in. So in this case, we don't really ever need to refer to the this keyword, so we just pass a null because there's no object that we need, so we just pass a null. Okay, and then every other argument we can pass in for the new function that is created, if that makes some sense. If you don't understand bind, it can be a little bit confusing, but just don't worry so much about it though. Just know that with this part, we can handle all of our events and pass in all of the respective arguments that we need. Okay, but in every single event, we need to make sure the first parameter we pass in is client because we're passing it through here. Okay, you don't need to, but you should, because in all of our other files, we don't have references to the client object itself. So if for some reason you need to reference the client for some reason, you won't be able to. So that's why we're passing that in as a parameter in there. Okay, so notice how in this ready.js file, I'm exporting this function, this arrow function over here. And since the ready event does not take in any, the handler doesn't take in any parameters in the callback function, right? So if we were to do a simple client on ready, it doesn't take in any parameters, okay? So that's why over here, the signature of this arrow function over here is just client, right? The client being this parameter we passed in over here. Okay, so that's why this works, because we have this function registered, okay, and we're binding it from line 16, so that way we can actually use this function whenever the event is being emitted. Okay, again, I know it can be a little bit confusing, but don't worry so much about it. If you are still confused, just leave a comment down below or just join my Discord server and I'll try my best to explain it. Okay, but let's go ahead and try other events. So let's just do message.js. Now watch this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, module.exports. You need to do this in every single event file, okay? Because every single event file needs to export a toppable function. The first parameter needs to be client. The second parameter is going to be the parameter that is passed into the callback function for the function handler, okay? So in this case, it's going to be a message arrow function. And now we can go ahead and just say if message.author.bot, we can return if message.content equals ping message.reply pong, just like that. Okay, now watch this. So I'm going to get rid of this now. Now, if I save, right, you're going to see, let's just say this. Let's just say console.log, event name, event was registered. Okay, save it. Message event was registered, ready event was registered. Okay, AnSenBot has logged in. I'm going to go ahead and say ping. Going to reply with pong, just like that. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. Okay, again, obviously, don't get too tripped up over this line 17 .bind part. You don't really need to worry so much about it. Okay, now one more thing that the AnIdiot'sGuide that he does, because again, this whole thing is based off AnIdiot'sGuide. One thing that he does is he uses the delete keyword to remove the module from the cache, because we already have it attached already to the we already have the listener attached already, so we don't really need to require it again. So we don't really need to leave in the cache. So we can just say delete require cache require.resolve, and then we're gonna do path.join. I'm just going to dir name, events, and then event name. This will remove it from the cache because we already have it. We already have the event listener already, so we don't really need it in the required cache anymore. You don't need to do this, but it is recommended. Again, don't worry so much about it though. Okay, so yeah. Anyways, I think that's it for now. We are on 20 minutes, but again, I'll do the command handler in the next video, but hopefully this all made some sense. Okay, so I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.